I was trolling some people in Singapore actually the other day, so that was kind of fun. They were going for a run, and I was like, "Hey, enjoy your run. Don't drop any trash on the floor. They might throw you in jail."
Ray Bochman, that was, right?
I think so.
Ray Bochman is going places. He's going to all the events. He's at Adobe, huh? He's I think he's now support architect. Welcome to Magetalk. This is episode 233, and my name is Willem.
That sounded extraordinarily professional. Like very, very slow, calm, confident. I like it.
And the date today is the 24th of August.
You're so big on this date thing, man. It's so strange to me, but I'm into it, man. It's all good. It's all good.
It gives a little bit of context that it's been 1 week since we last talked.
Right. A lot has happened.
Meet Magento Singapore is this week. And Meet Magento New York is in exactly 1 month time.
Oh, that's nice, man. All right, so I had an idea for. No, I don't know if I want to run that by you. No, I'm not going to run it by you. I did a little bit of. I've been a little more active with the Magetalk account as of late, and
I've noticed.
Good. And I was trolling some people in Singapore actually the other day, so that was kind of fun. They were, they were going for a run, and I was like, "Hey, enjoy your run. Don't drop any trash on the floor. They might throw you in jail."
Ray Bochman, that was, right?
I think so.
Ray Bochman is going places. He's going to all the events. He's at Adobe, huh? He's I think he's now support architect.
Is it safe to say, this just occurred to me, is it safe to say that the Netherlands is now the epicenter of the Magento community? Your thoughts?
Epicenter in a good way or in a bad way?
In a good way. Epicenter is always a good way.
I do.
We're joking.
I do have the feeling. Well, I'm gonna try to get something that makes sense out of anything you say. Let's say something sensible there. I think the community spirit or the open source spirit at the moment is strongest in Europe and Asia and less in the US. I think it's still strong, but it's all. I mean, all the hackathons and all the contributions were always very strong in Europe. And I think that's one of the reasons why Hyvä catched on quite well here in the Netherlands, Germany, the UK, and France. That was a good market for us to get started and grow fast. And now I'm very curious. I'm very curious to get a feeling for how things are in the US. It will be the first time for a long time that I will go to the US with Meet Magento New York. And I've seen going to Meet Magento London, UK, only then when you actually talk to the people and all the agency people come to you and share their enthusiasm and tell you what they've been doing with Hyvä. It's so much different than just answering emails all day. And you have customers there, but to really feel the sparkle and the energy. I'm super hopeful that the same happens in the US if I go there. That I need a lot of people that are just so into it. That'd be cool. That's a big boost. Yeah.
I think that, and it's funny because I've been talking to a lot of people recently. I've been, thinking about what new business I'm going to do next. I've been talking to a bunch of people, and I've been talking to agency owners, and it's like in the U.S., it's like people are. There's something about Europe, parts of Europe, right? Like Europe never was big in Magento commercial licenses in the first place. Like that was much more a U.S. thing. So it's almost so. I think the open source ethos community has always been stronger in general in Europe. Don't get me wrong, we have some heavy hitters as well in the U.S., but it's more commercialized here. So there's more partner ecosystem, and then a lot of agency owners here that were into Magento, they've moved on, and they've diversified or moved on or both. And they're like, hey man, listen, BigCommerce is going to let me get this site deployed for the customer at the right price. I'm in, and it's a very practical, decision. So, so I think, I think it's, and I'm sure that happens in Europe as well, but I think there's a little bit of a difference there.
I don't see I see BigCommerce mostly in social media from US people. I don't see much traction in BigCommerce here in Europe. But the same goes, I know there's more and more Shopify stores, but they're usually quite internationally focused. Most of the local stores here that are more focused on the European market itself, I don't see that many of those working with just Shopify, because for a long time localization was an issue. Having multiple store views wasn't possible, so you just needed to like recreate your whole store in different languages. Integrations were lacking behind for a long time. So I think Shopify really conquered the US market, and I'm sure they're doing great globally. But the situation is it's much different in Europe. I think open source is stronger here still.
Yeah, I think so. And I've been thinking a lot about the Magento community and the future of it and things like that. And I think that it's funny. I was talking to somebody recently when you talk to somebody who is part of the company, like it's very easy for me to criticize Adobe, previous to Adobe, criticize Magento, the company. But then when I talk to an individual, if I'm just thinking about the company as a whole, I don't think of it as a person. I think of it as a nameless, faceless entity. So it's very easy for me to criticize. But then if I talk to somebody who's there or was previously there, I go, well, this is a human being that's trying to figure things out. And then I go, you should calm down. But I think it's important to also just speak the truth. There's that balance, right, between, like the Bible says, speak the truth in love. I'm on this whole biblical reference theme as well, which is funny. But anyways, which me and Phil had in common. All you Europeans are all godless atheists, but that's another.
I love how Ricky Gervais has the best conversations on the topic. You probably know the one where he has his interview and he says there's a 999 God that people pray to in the world, and you believe in one. I believe in one less than you. I don't believe in 999, and you don't believe in 998. And that's good. I mean, I respect. I think we should all respect whatever religion or belief people have.
Yeah.
I always like the expression what people say. What was it again? I think it's something you should. It's best to keep for yourself and not try to push onto other people.
Yeah.
I don't.
Totally. The interesting thing is, and I think about this a lot, is I think that there's no such thing as not having a religion. I think that what we see as like, and I'm going to tie this in to Magento stuff, but what we see, like you see as you see the growth of like the death of religion in the traditional sense over the last however many years, people develop their own groups and things they think, and some of them are pretty objectively, you go, that's kind of a weird idea, but people, whether it's diet, whatever. And I think what's universal is people want to be in a group. And when you're in a group, we're in the group, we're on the team, you're on another team. And what you said about respecting each other is, I think, what it all comes down to. And the tie into the e-commerce ecosystem stuff is that these platform ecosystems are little mini religions, Magento used to have a very strong, what's the word I'm looking for? Like when everybody is fervent, like a fervent community, and everybody was doing it. It was all we were doing. We didn't have to look at other platforms. Now everybody's diversified. And then, there's people that just do Shopify and they think Magento people are idiots or whatever. But I think just coming back to that thing about having respect. Anyway, the thing I was trying to say initially was that, what was I trying? Oh yeah, the future of the Magento open source. So I think I feel more clearly than ever that Magento as a whole, in terms of Adobe Commerce, the commercial aspect, Adobe the company, the community, open source, the whole thing is in decline and is a mess as a whole. There is, but here's the good news. There is a segment, the open source driven, what you're doing, MageOS, that is probably smaller, obviously smaller businesses as compared to the $100 million Adobe Commerce clients or whatever. They're smaller. That is thriving. I think is going to continue to grow and is going to have a really cool lifetime for a long ass time. And I think that's a big part of what you're a part of. And when we say small businesses, this could be, like you said, you want 100. You said you have 1,000 stores. You want 100x that. And I don't think you're delusional. I suspect you're probably going to do it. And so that could be a really great sized market, and it doesn't have to be $1 billion market cap, $1 trillion. It doesn't have to be, there's no reason it has to be. It can be what it is, and a great community where there's a lot of love, good vibes, cool work, cool projects, so anyway, that's my whole rant on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying that the community has shrunk, but it's a logical side effect of having more platforms, but also technology evolving and Magento not being the one single tool that is available, but also not the one single tool that's best for every use case.
And by the way, like I was talking to somebody recently, and people are very practical. Just because they've moved into another platform, right, and they're focusing on big commerce, let's say U.S. agents or whatever, right? Just because they've done that doesn't mean that you can't come in with a practical solution to their problem on Magento and have them use that, recommend that to a client, get a sale, maybe start to grow again. Like if the pie of the Magento has shrunk for a given agency or agencies in average, doesn't mean you can't start to shrink it back, reverse that shrinkage. And I think that's exactly what Hoova can do, right? It's an extremely practical solution that I think people can, maybe it can solve a use case, and it can make Magento not overly expensive. Yeah.
I liked it at some point. John Pendergast from Eonak. I'm butchering both his personal name and his agency name, but he's from Ireland. He has a small shop, like small agency, and he at some point gave me the feedback that he went live with a shop that normally would always have gone to Shopify.
Right.
And that with the Huva offering, they did 2 or 3 projects before they took on this client, because then they felt comfortable to give a fixed price for a project that was really competitive with a Shopify build.
Right.
And he said, so thanks to Huva, we can bring back customers to Magento
That's
that otherwise
right
would have been going to other platforms. And I've heard similar things from other agencies that saw a lot of clients switching to, for example, Shopware in Germany, and one agency owner telling me like, well, we literally stopped the bleeding now that we have Huva and we can do cheaper builds. So we're not losing customers anymore.
It's huge. At the end of the day, everybody's on a spectrum of sort of like, there's the really super pure open source. They'll use Magento no matter what, right? Other people, hey, we got to make the bottom line work. We have to make this profitable. We have to be within a certain price point. Everybody's on a certain spectrum. I think the US skews a little bit more towards the practicality. But at the end of the day, if you can make it more affordable, which is exactly what you're doing, then people are going to be interested in that. I'm curious to know, in the case of the person who went to Shopify and then went back, it's interesting. Like, why? Like, I'm curious to know more about that. Like I would think once you go to Shopify, you're in that ecosystem. You don't have to worry about hosting, all that kind of stuff. Like, what was the thought and then you start to reorient your agency, right? Like I was talking to somebody recently. When you're in the Shopify world, you want to do marketing, you want to do design, you don't want to focus so much on technical development. So I'm curious what that looked like a little bit. I know it's not a very clear question, but I think that migration is super interesting.
Yeah, so I asked Joseph if he would hop onto a podcast with me, and he said, I'll be happy to write on a showcase together with you, but I don't really feel comfortable doing
totally.
recordings.
That makes sense.
He sent me some information that I'm currently looking at. He did a 40-hour build. So that's the week work. So that's, and with Huva, yeah. So okay. And it's a low end build. So you have to imagine there's not a lot of customization that he did there, but it's I assume a merchant that is in a market where the product sells itself, and you just need like the simplest UI to sell the product, like show it, put it in a cart, and sell it. I think with Shopify, you're committing to a monthly payment, and is it even a conversion rate? That, like, do you pay?
I think you pay a percentage of your sale. I want to say you pay a percentage of your sales as well.
Yeah. I think so. And it's the checkout model, right? And they're really restricting what payment methods you can use. You don't own your card. It's harder. And I think for SMEs, smaller medium businesses, it's interesting to have a one-time fee and know kind of what the upgrade cost. Of course, there's a cost of ownership that comes with Magento and security updates and such, but just knowing that you've bought something that you own, and it's not like when you stop paying, it's gone. I think that's an important one, at least in the European market. I think a lot of business owners feel like they want to pay for something that they own and not just lease it.
Yeah. And I think in general, like obviously there's been a gigantic movement towards subscription payments in the last, I don't know, decade or two. But that pendulum is going to swing back, and people are going to go, just not even with e-commerce. I mean, even with personal monthly subscriptions, people are going to go, I don't want to pay monthly for all this stuff. And I think that pendulum will swing back and forth every couple decades,
Yeah, I just recently saw people doing a breakdown of the monthly cost in Shopify, and they showed that the cost of the extensions that they were paying monthly were a couple of $100. They were much higher than the cost of Shopify itself.
Right.
And as soon as you start writing off 2,000 euros of extensions every month, it might be interesting to look into Magento, where you either buy your extension for one-time fee, but at least it's not bound to your revenue. Of course, some of the extension vendors have gone to a subscription model, but it's still not. It's not 2,000 euros a month for a couple of extensions.
That's what I was going to say. Is I feel like, for example, if you're doing email, like, you're probably on Klaviyo or something like that. Whether I don't know what the market's like in Europe, but like I know, for example, in the Shopify world, you're probably, you're on Klaviyo, you're on ListTrack or something like that. So in that sense, though, those costs are kind of the same, whether you're on Magento or Shopify. Because, in theory, you could have an installed extension that's not SaaS that does email marketing, but I don't think anybody does that, or all of these major SaaS extensions that are starting to have their own kind of ecosystems, whether it's for like email or
shipping,
exactly. Like in that sense, those costs actually aren't really different from Magento to Shopify.
No, but it's more like little functionalities that you would in Magento you would use a plugin for different UI UX things. Custom features in your shop.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm curious where all of it is going. We certainly have a good thing.
I need you to lean into the microphone and say, "I am corporate." So funny. I literally started laughing when I saw it.
Yeah,
So what do we got in the doc? Sorry.
People have to know what you're talking about, don't they?
I know.
You tweeted that I would. Someone would get on my back and complain about things that I say on this podcast. But there's no one that I don't report to no one, Caleb.
You don't report to anybody.
That's the thing.
I love it. Because
people might stop telling me things at some point, but they might regret letting me onto the Magento Station board. But at least I was invited in there, so that's a better position. So there was the election where the community could vote for a person to get onto the board, and I aimed for the second round where a committee would elect 2 members to get onto the board, because that would be a vetting process where the current board would actually have to agree to the person getting on board of the association. And for me, it felt, because I think I might have some controversial thoughts and go against some of the things that the MA has been doing so far, that it felt like they needed to accept me on board. Invite me in instead of being stuck with me because the community voted me in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm the unwanted person there on the board.
Right. No, that's a really good point. I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that you paid them a little money under the table to give you the position. That always. It's always. So. I just have the doc here on my phone. I'm not looking. I'm not just browsing TikTok while we're chatting. I just pulled up the doc.
talking about TikTok. How much time do you spend on TikTok?
I try to spend like not more than an hour a day.
Okay.
But it's kind of my main, until I started doing real active Twitter trolling, which is starting to take more time. It's kind of it's become my main social media as far as just browsing as a consumer.
What things do you consume? Because I had this discussion with Philip on Twitter where I made a joke. Philip mentioned the For You page, the FIP.
Yeah.
The FIP, and Brand Peterson didn't know what it was, so I jokingly said it's this. It's where girls in bikinis do dances on pop music on Twitter, and Philip went on to taking conclusions out of that I have trained my TikTok algorithm to show me bikini girls. So it was very telling about my behavior.
Yeah.
Which is not what my actual feed looks like, because I hadn't trained my feed at all.
Yeah.
But
so
Philip trained me. He taught me how to train the algorithm, and apparently it took me 5 minutes of telling TikTok that I don't need to see the dance videos, and I only get stand-up comedians and and Harry Mack.
Yeah. By the way, you're talking about Philip from View Storefront, or which
Jackson?
Oh. That's so funny how times have changed.
I want to call him Phil. But I know he doesn't like that.
In my head, because it's hard coded as Phil, and I have to purposely say Philip every time. But anyways,
it's the same for me.
Yeah,
his Twitter handle is Phil Winkle, and so
it's the most.
I've always felt he has no right. Correct. He needs to change his Twitter handle if he doesn't want to be called Phil.
He has no right. Yeah. I'm actually super fascinated by the TikTok algorithm, and I think a lot about it. I think I saw somebody say that one of the things they did to make it successful is they took Facebook's lookalike audience functionality for advertising targeting, and they baked it into the entire to the social network itself. So out of the box, it's doing lookalike targeting. As well as like behavior stuff. So like I see nothing but like I see like funny stuff, stand-up stuff, like dads doing stuff with their kids, parents doing funny stuff with their kids, like random goofy stuff like that. But yeah, the stereotype is it's just girls dancing, and I'm sure there's a lot of that, but like I think it also figures out like your age, and it puts you in a cohort. And then it buckets you in that way. So it's a lot of just goofy stuff.
The thing for me is that it always feels like a waste of time after I finish scrolling it for an hour. But still, I'm drawn back to doing it. But it doesn't like, at least Twitter's purely for business use for me. I mean, it's entertaining, but. Twitter's where I do my professional social stuff, and LinkedIn because I just have to. It has.
Yeah.
I would have a lot more traction on LinkedIn posting stuff, but it's just for me the Magento community is still Twitter, and if I feel like sharing something I'm doing or any random thought that I have that I want to share, it comes naturally to me to share it on Twitter, and then at some point I think, well, it probably makes sense to do it on LinkedIn as well, because I have more people reacting to it there. But TikTok just doesn't really engage me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really bring me the content that really invites me to think about about stuff.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just
dopamine hits.
Yeah, I think it's just personally entertaining. It's not really productive from a work standpoint. Although I've been starting to if I see, for example, I've been starting to think of like repurpose funny videos for like memes. Like I saw one that I posted today that was like this UFC fighter, and he's cheering somebody on. He's like, yeah, give him an uppercut, give him a da-da-da. And then I posted it as a meme. I was like, point of view when you see somebody pitching Magento against BigCommerce.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I don't know. Anyway, but people probably hate that stuff. But yeah, so I think I think it's more just a personal thing. But like, yeah, I mean, obviously, like if you, it's one of those balance things. It's like if you spend too much, like there's all sorts of entertainment that you can spend too much time on, or you can kind of spend the right amount of time. Like we all need some entertainment. We all need some something where we kind of check out. Like I used to be into games when I was a kid. I kind of got out of it, but a lot of people my age and probably especially your age are into games. And it's just kind of like pick your poison and try not to have too much of it, But
yeah, gaming works well for me. When during my burnout, I did a lot of gaming because it's just an instant way to shut off my brain.
Yeah.
If I'm at a good place, I can read a book, and I can really like get lost into the story. But when I have too much on my mind, I just don't shut down. So I can't read a book even because I finish a page and I have no idea what I just read. So I'm just an instant, constant repeat of that one page, and then I give up.
Totally.
But with gaming, it's just switch on, put on your headset, and you're completely gone.
Yeah. It's that whole thing of like turning your mind off. Like I try to meditate every day, and at first it was like torture, and I've talked to people about it who are like, yeah, it sucks, it's torture, and then over time. And I started, stopped, and then try different ways. But then eventually, I feel like I got to where it helps sometimes. I heard somebody say, like, how do you know if meditation is helping? Or no, how do you know if you're making progress? Because it can feel very unclear, right? Because all you're doing is sitting there, like, not thinking or whatever. And they said, it feels horrible at first, but if you get to the point where you feel like some of the time it helps a little bit, that's the first stage that you're making some progress. And like the shutting your mind off thing, I'm still horrible at reading books. I can't read a book to save my life, and I've tried a couple times. And there's this one book I read with my daughter. Well, she reads it to me, and we talk about it, and then that's kind of fun. But I can't do that. But like going to sleep at night, I used to always have to listen to something. I'd listen to a TV show. Like I think we talked about this, but I finally got to the point where I don't do that anymore. I just play like some rain sounds in the background and nothing. And sometimes it's hard because your mind is racing. But I finally got to the point where I can fall asleep without anything, which sounds so basic, but to me it's like it was a big milestone with just the whole turning your brain off department. By the way, how does my audio sound? Because this is a new mic. I'm experimenting with some new mics.
It's a bit soft.
Okay. I'll balance it out.
We'll fix it to post.
I realize, literally, I'll normalize it. But like, so when it's closer like this, it probably sounds a little better.
You're making it really hard to fix it in post now.
Well, I know. I think it'll normalize. Like the normalization is pretty good.
Now it's a bit distorted now.
Okay, gotcha.
It's like too directly into the mic.
Got it. Yeah, I realized that I wanted something wireless because I was so distracted since I'm so weird and I move around and do weird stuff all the time. I can't sit still. If I try to sit still and talk, it's like I can't focus. So I realized I need something wireless. So I got this, and then anyways, I'm continuing to iterate on that.
Do Do you want to go over a couple of things, some innovational things in Magento land?
Dude, it occurred to me yesterday that I don't know why it occurred to me yesterday for the first time. I know we didn't get through the doc last week. It occurred to me we didn't get to the extension of the week, and I was like, dude, that was literally the only thing we should have gotten to, because the extension of the week is probably the thing that I most frequently remember people liking and enjoying, and I would come up with them a lot. And the fact that, you go, Kalen, we're going to do a proper Magetalk episode. I didn't know what you meant. And then you came with an extension of the week, an anti-pattern, and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, this is amazing. And then we didn't even get to it last week. So absolutely, let's dive into the extension of the week.
Cool. So no one would expect me to pitch this one because you could see it as competition of Huva. But I think it's a really good thing for the Magento ecosystem. And this extension of the week is the Breeze platform or front end, which is more of a plugin that you would use with the Luma team that rewrites require.js stuff to. So what they did was not rebuild the whole front end or the whole Luma team, but they re-implemented the JavaScript, keeping some of the things intact. So the dependencies, the way that require.js has this waterfall of it can require other libraries, and they kind of rebuilt that with their own logic. I think
this is amazing.
It's pretty cool. That I think this is 99% the work of Vova Yatsjuk. He works at Swiss Labs, and that's an extension provider.
By the way, are you starting to realize now, as you're beginning to be the host, how hard it is to pronounce anything correctly? And you try to pronounce something and you go, I have no idea if I'm doing this right.
I'm pretty sure this was spot on. Vova Yatsjuk.
But the last person you mentioned, you thought you might have mispronounced. I'm just saying.
Ray Bochman?
No. It was something else. It was something. You're starting to feel my pain a little bit, is all I'm saying.
John Pendergast, but
that was it. You mispronounced his name and his company name.
It's his company name, Eonak. I'm sure he corrected me once, and I immediately forgot what way was
100%.
to pronounce it.
100%.
Irish is just a bit. It's
a bit crazy.
A bit hard.
In it.
But
can I say how good?
Yeah.
Back to Breeze. Can I say how good their headline is? And I'm a big headline guy. A gentle shift from default Magento front end towards all green performance. It really spells it out nicely, right? So Huva is probably less. Huva is more of a dramatic shift, and this, like you're saying, it's more of just, hey, we're cleaning up Luma. It's a little bit more straightforward, right?
Yeah. So I think the issue that we tackle with Huva is also that people just don't want to work with the Luma stack anymore.
Totally.
And it's painful to optimize, and there's a lot of work that you need to do to get performance better. What the guys at Swiss Labs did, or at least what Vova did, was re-implement the slowest parts of Luma, which is the way that require.js works. That doesn't mean that you get to work with a more modern technology stack. You're still stuck with technologies that people stopped using 8 years ago, but the fact that they've put so much time and effort into fixing this performance issue for those that are unable to switch to a new front end, I think it's still, you need to make extensions compatible with it. They have a couple of extensions, I think, that are listed on GitHub that they've made compatible. It's a handful. This is coming from an extension vendor, Swiss Labs, and they tie it into their existing teams and their extensions. So if you're a Swiss Labs user, then it definitely might make sense because everything would more or less work out of the box. But then if you have third-party extensions that you need to use, you would need to rewrite them yourself. And the benefit that we have with Hyvä is that we are not an extension vendor, so we're not competing with MSD, Headworks, etc. So we built a community around it that makes the extensions compatible. Now all the extension vendors decided to start making Hyvä compatible extensions.
Right.
So it's kind of a different position, and with Hyvä you have a different technology stack that's enjoyable to work with.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I think it's super generous that it's in a true spirit of open source that they built this and open sourced it, and this
so is it just open source?
It's so much work into it.
So is it just free?
So let me double check that, because I was under the assumption I was pretty sure that it was, because I read an announcement that they open sourced it on GitHub. GitHub.com/breezefront, and there's a bunch of repositories you can find there. And
I mean, I see the composer install instructions here, installation. It looks like it's just straight up free open source.
That's really cool.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wow, this is an impressive job on your first extension of the week. Not only is it really good, but you were magnanimous enough to highlight a competitor-ish, which I respect. This is really cool.
I think this is solving an issue in the Magento community ecosystem as much as Hyvä is solving an issue, and the more solutions we have against Luma, the better. And I collaborate with Few Storefronts.
Yep.
We have this webinar coming up the 30th of August, so that's next week on Tuesday, I think. Yep. People should subscribe. Go to magentoassociation.org and subscribe to the webinar, because we're going to explain what even is a SPA and a PWA, and what is headless and what is microservices and all of that.
Yeah.
And when should you use it or when shouldn't you use it?
Yeah. It's funny because I was going back and working on clips of our last episode when we first talked about it, and I did one of this. And as I was doing it, it occurred to me, it occurred to me how big of a deal it was, because I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like every discussion of PWA headless is so biased and so, it's a business guy pushing something to sell. And I feel like maybe this is the first time that there's people who really understand. The tweet I jokingly posted was like actual nerds that know what they're talking about. Really understand, like, you've got the agencies that make these actual decisions day to day. We're not talking about an agency who did one implementation of headless and now they're going to give their case study, which is an advertisement, or somebody who's planning it. So it just, and I love the vibe between you and Philip. Like, I love how collaborative you guys are. Obviously he's wicked smart, you're okay, but I think it's
I get by.
Yeah, you get by.
But the cool thing is that so Philip and I both obviously are biased in the way we both believe in our product, but we also both believe that our product is not the one solution for every merchant.
Yeah.
We're not gonna steer the webinar with our opinions. It's mostly letting Christian and Luke and Jesse do the talking. And it's nice that you have Jesse there as well, because he's coming from a whole different perspective. He's of course a trainer that gives trainings in all of the front-end solutions in Luma, in Huva, in Vue Storefront, in PWA Studio,
that's super
earlier in
interesting.
Deity. So he knows all of the platforms. He works with all the agencies that work with one or multiple of these solutions. So he knows his stuff.
Is Deity still around? What's the deal with that?
It's a bit unclear what the Deity products itself is exactly. They now have Falcon, and Falcon is more of a platform that combines, as far as I understand, it combines ERP logic, and it's more of a middleware layer that ties all of these services together.
Okay.
And I don't know if Deity is still the name of the front-end solution that's part of Falcon, but at least Magento integration that they had.
Yeah.
Well, it was Deity and now it's Falcon. It might still be Deity, but I'm pretty sure they pulled the open source code from GitHub at some point, and it's supposed to still be available, I think, but it's more close-ish.
Right.
They're definitely still around. They're big in the ecommerce space.
Oh, really?
That's
right. That's right. They were. I remember they were announced as basically like the BigCommerce PWA
go-to front end, like Vue Storefront is kind of the go-to front end for Shopware, the headless go-to front end.
Right. Yeah.
So they pivoted a bit. Yeah.
Totally. And everybody is going to make their pivots and stuff like that, and that's cool. And I think the sweet spot, like you said, you're biased, of course. You can't get a company off the ground without being biased, without believing in what you're doing. But I think the sweet spot is you really believe in what you're doing. You're working your ass off to make it, to grow it, and at the same time, you are not, you're not going to say things that aren't true. You're not going to, if something's the better solution for X, you're going to say, yeah, it's the better solution. You're not going to be. You're not going to have like a false bravado, but you're going to be confident enough in what you're doing to be able to be honest about, the other options out there. I think that's exactly the sweet spot. And both of you guys, I perceive as being exactly in that sweet spot, which isn't always the case for people that are working on products.
We have to just build the best possible product, and our claim is that we do everything to our best capabilities to make people happy.
Yeah.
E-commerce made happy is our slogan, and if you don't live up to that expectation, you're gonna fall hard. Like you can't pretend.
Yep.
Because it's all open. Like we have all of our customers in a Slack talking to each other.
Yep.
If one is not satisfied, they will all know, and all of TwitterNet and LinkedIn will know.
Yep.
So we're very much focused on making people happy with our product and doing the best possible. And I think that's something that I really have in common with Philip Rakowski from Vue Storefront, because the reason we got talking was because he saw we had this Twitter exchange where we wrote about headless not being the best solution for every customer, and he agreed. And he said, it's hurtful for us as a headless storefront if merchants use our solution that shouldn't be using it in the first place, because they won't be happy and they will tell other people that they are not happy. So it's up to us to give the best possible explanation of what we do and help people to the right solution, and not sell it on a false advertisement, because that doesn't lead to happy customers.
Totally. All right, should we go to the anti-pattern?
Yeah, the anti-pattern of the week, and this is one that we come across quite often, that people switch to Huva or have a new storefront and they come to us and say, well, our performance, our lighthouse scores are still not green circles. And they ask us how they can improve their front end, while in reality, it's often the back end that needs to be optimized. And you can optimize your front end as much as you want. if your server render time is 6 seconds, it doesn't matter if the front end loads in 1 or 2 seconds, because your Lighthouse score will be very bad because it already takes 6 seconds to generate the page on the server side.
Right.
So the anti-pattern is improving front-end performance before fixing back-end issues. And if you're looking at a Magento store that has, I've seen 30-second load times on stores on Luma that I optimized by just fixing one extension that loaded something in the loop, which makes me think of even Chaperny and the Load in the Loop podcast that he did together with Eric Hillman. They were great. They always looked at Magento stores and then did the Blackfire profiling. If you want to learn about optimizing backend performance, go to YouTube and search for Load in the Loop, and you get a whole series of recordings that Ivan and Eric did, where they actually show how to debug backend performance issues.
Yeah.
So not using varnish, not having your caching mechanisms in place, having images that are way too big are all issues that if you don't do that well, those issues are so big that it makes no sense to optimize the front end before you tackle those issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there, I keep thinking one thing that would be good for Magento, one of the other little business ideas I had once upon a time, was to have a service that just focuses on helping people optimize their stores, front end focused, back end focused. Is there like a go-to? I mean, I know that every agency does performance audits and stuff like that, and they're basically, generally just kind of lead generation to try to get more work from the client, is my perception. But like, is there a go-to person who would be the person to do performance optimizations?
Yes, there is. That person is Erwin Hofman. And of course, he's a Dutch guy.
Yeah, I connected with him, but he's front end focused, right?
Yes, he is. Well, yeah, I think you would go to him to get an audit of your front end performance, but in that process, he will identify your back end loading times and issues that you have there.
Okay.
But he's e-commerce specialized, so he might. It's a good one. I'm not sure how far into backend. I know he's super technical, but I don't know if he's that technical that he will profile your Magento backend and fix those issues. But there's a couple of agencies that do independent auditing of your shop, including performance audits. And I'll leave it to the listeners to Google for those agencies and find one that's suitable for you, because there's a couple. I won't play favorites, but there are quite some agencies that focus on performance. And often, what I mentioned, a shop having a 30-second load time, that was something that with a little profiling with Blackfire, I fixed in an hour. And got it down to 8 seconds, and then some additional fixes brought that down to an average of 2 seconds. I think it was a B2B shop that had a lot of custom. They did price fetching from their ERP, and there was no middle layer, so there was a lot of API calls going directly to their ERP system.
Right, that's wild.
Things like fetching a review average score from an API in the front end and not caching that result. So for every visitor that hits a Magento page that it's not cached yet, did API call to, I think it was Kio or another review system, Trustpilot. And just putting that into a cron job and doing that API call in a cron job once an hour or once a day, fetching that data from the database, that saved at least a second in the front end on any uncached page. Nice. So that's pretty ridiculous. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But there's people specialized in that. While we're talking on performance, there's one thing I had in the doc that I wanted to bring up, which was a piece of innovation that Hypernode came with.
Oh, cool.
Hypernode, a Dutch Magento hosting provider, they merged with Hypex, which was, I think, the second largest Magento hosting provider in the Netherlands. So they're both now part of the Blue Group, and that's all under the name Hypernode. And I know that Hypex worked for a long time on a front-end performance tool that would improve your Luma performance without touching any of the code. And they finalized that tool now that they're merged with Hypernode. They have something that's called the Hypernode Page Speed Booster.
Okay.
And they launched that just 1 or 2 weeks ago. At least they started blogging about it publicly. And what's interesting there is that they have a set of optimizations that they do that are on the edge, kind of. So it's not on the server rendering, but it's actually on the delivery. So they cache. It's something that I had in my mind years ago as well. Like, what if the first person gets a page that's uncached, but then you analyze the page and save that? You do an AJAX request to the server to store some of the data in the front end, things that were loaded, and optimize that. And they now, with the page speed booster from Hypernode, the first person that visits the page gets the regular performance, but then that response, before that's served to the customer or the visitor, it's being stored, I guess, in Varnish or something, and they run some optimizations on the images that are being loaded. So they rewrite all the images to the right, to the resolution of your visitor, so the screen resolution. And they do things like analyzing what JavaScript files were loaded, and then add those to the pre-connect headers of the page. So you can add metadata to a page that tells your browser to start fetching JavaScript files even before the browser rendered the page and found out via require.js which files are actually are needed. So it's pretty cool. So that they built that into it.
Does it have any Magento specific stuff, or is it just more at the JavaScript level and stuff like that?
No, they built this specifically for Magento, and they call it an optimization as a service. So it's an additional package that you take on top of a Hypernode hosting package. They put all of these optimization tasks into a kind of a cron job or a backend worker that improves the performance of the page that already has been served to a visitor.
That's cool. It sounds yeah. I'm a little foggy. It's been a while since I've gotten to the details of like Varnish and hole punching and stuff, but it sounds like kind of basically Varnish with like CDN image type stuff. But if they do that all for you in a way that like just works out of the box, because normally like when I set up Varnish the last time I was with a merchant, I had to go in and fix get certain things to work, get certain modules to work and stuff like that, and it requires.
It's one of the most expensive things is to optimize your Luma store for performance. So literally anything that's being done to solve those issues, I'm a fan of. And the things that they list as what they optimize is the JavaScript. So they're minimizing and deferring it to optimize for first contentful paint. They do the DNS pre-connect. So what I just said, like if they see that you're using a particular Google font, they will make sure that the DNS records are already looked up and there's already a connection being made to the Google server, so that once the page realizes that it's using a Google font, otherwise it would need to do a DNS lookup that's a couple of milliseconds before it can actually download the font. So there's a bit of back and forth between servers. and that, or between your browser and the server, and that can all be optimized, which they do in a quite clever way. They do CSS optimization by creating critical CSS automatically. They optimize the images, as I already said, turn it into AVIF format. They shrink the HTML, and in case of a PWA, they do JavaScript conversion to HTML. So they basically even build SSR rendering for PWA into that. So I think it goes quite deep into the optimization, and it's just it looks like it's plug and play, so you just pay for it and it's all taken care of, which might be the better solution for you than to spend thousands of euros on a developer optimizing each of these things.
Dude, that's so cool, man.
Yeah,
that's neat. I'm gonna dig into this a little bit.
Piece of innovation.
Is it the page speed booster? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The Hypernode?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, man. That's really cool. Okay, quick meta question.
Another cool thing.
Yeah. Quick meta question. I'm cool with longer episodes. I know some people like kind of limiting to an hour episode, right? Mm-hmm. But I have time. I'm good. So I'm curious what you think about going over. We went over an hour last time, so I'm cool with that, but I'm curious your thoughts.
If at this point you're listening and you're tired, pause and come back tomorrow.
Come back later.
Just pause it.
Yeah, agree. Totally, man. Yeah, no, because I think in the past I've done content overload where like I did daily podcasts and stuff like that, and I think obviously this isn't daily, so that's good. But yeah, cool.
I often listen to podcasts, not in a single run, but just bits by bits when I have time.
Yeah.
When I drive my car, and that's a 50-minute drive, so I can't listen to a full podcast in my car anyway.
Yeah, totally. Okay, what do we got next? I see we've got recession topics, Oracle Commerce.
How much do you know about Oracle Commerce? Because I didn't know that much about it until
very little. Yeah.
I know.
Do you want to talk about the Smith Buckland thing? I know we had started on that last time, and then I do want to leave it alone.
We can, but do we now skip over Oracle Commerce?
No. Let's do Oracle. Since we started it, let's do Oracle. Sorry, I'm jumping. I'm getting jumpy.
Yeah, let's say the bare minimum about it. There was some news last week, which I haven't been able to verify. I didn't see any additional sources, but someone heard from multiple sources that Oracle Commerce Cloud had their plug being pulled. And all that I know is that Oracle Commerce is competing. They're on the level to compete with Adobe B2B and Salesforce, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, it was interesting to me to see that they seemingly announced not to continue working on it. They're not bringing out a new roadmap. They're gonna maybe sunset it or just not update it anymore and keep it running for as long as they have customers, which is extraordinary, I think, for a product of that size. Mm-hmm. And I put it in the doc under the heading recession, where I also put Shopify layoffs.
Right.
And it was in the same week that the news of Oracle and Shopify shrinking their employees.
Right.
So it felt like there was a bit of a movement, people anticipating to recession, and yeah, it's crazy times. I don't know how your shopping expenses are, your grocery expenses, but here I'm seeing 50% higher prices for our weekly groceries.
Yeah. Things are up. Yeah, it's kind of brutal. The recession in general, or the inflation, all that kind of stuff is kind of brutal. I have a hard time imagining entire commerce product closes down from the recession. It'd have to be a really bad recession. The layoffs, I think you could probably attribute to a recession, but there's got to be something weird going on if they just completely closed Oracle Commerce. That's so wild.
The Oracle probably they have reasons that they had coming, probably. But it would be interesting to hear from someone that has worked with Oracle and knows a bit more about that. But I wasn't able to find more. It's so entirely out of my social bubble.
So I don't know if you know Aaron Sheehan.
Yeah, he reshared that on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Actually, that's
where I found the post.
Yeah. That's why I'm looking at it. It was his repost. Yeah. So he obviously was with Classy Llama, into Magento, and then he
BigCommerce now, right?
He's at BigCommerce now. Before that, he was with Merkle. He went from doing a lot of Magento stuff, obviously some BigCommerce stuff at Classy, and then I think he got into doing a lot of Salesforce commerce stuff. And now he's at BigCommerce. For some reason I thought he was a solutions architect, but I'm just seeing he's the director of competitive strategy, which is interesting. Before that at Merkle, which was DEG. I don't know if you knew anybody from DEG, but there were some really cool guys I knew from there, and so he was the director of solutions delivery there. So all that to say, and I'm just kind of looking at the comments, like he's probably the guy that would know quite a bit about this.
DEG looks like he did a lot of Salesforce stuff, and now he's into BigCommerce. I don't know if he had experience with Oracle or he just found it interesting.
Yeah.
On the
I'm
Shopify topic.
Sorry, I was just sorry. I don't know if you know Isaiah Bollinger with Trellis. Have you ever heard of?
No,
maybe not. They're a decent sized agency. Also, did a lot of Magento in the past. I've done a couple podcasts with him, but he's a good dude. And
no, for sure. I didn't quite catch that, but I know. I know him. You have a podcast coming up next week. I read, right?
Yeah. We were just talking yesterday about the Gartner report, and we were kind of talking about. I don't know if he specifically has a lot of experience with Oracle Commerce, but they focus a lot on B2B and stuff like that. And I think he has a lot of experience with a number of different platforms. And so we're going to kind of like roast the Gartner report. I think it's going to be kind of interesting. So that should be kind of fun.
Yeah, what I really dislike, the Gartner report is so influential in the development of the products. You can really see that platforms are implementing features or growing to a certain direction just to hit that sweet spot on the Gartner quadrant.
Right.
And they dictate composable commerce. They predict that everything is moving in that direction. And I have thoughts about composable commerce. We've talked about that before. And of course, it's different. There's different approaches to it. If you define it as composable commerce and it becomes part of your strategy and tooling around it. But as I said before, we've composed microservices for a long time, also with monoliths. So that's not much new, but they set kind of the specs, or they define the rules for what your technology stack should look like. and then everyone just follows because next year they need to be in the sweet spot on the Gartner quadrant.
It's a strange thing because people pay so much attention to it. I guess it's at a certain level in the C-suite of certain size companies pay a lot of attention to it. Then those of us that are in whatever community we're in, open source, we're not in the C-suite of $100 million companies. Whatever level that we're in, we all think it's totally ridiculous, and I think we're mostly right. I mean, I'm sure there's some I'm sure there's some grain of truth to some of it, but it's like Google search results. You know, everybody's trying to hack it. You know, and I don't know. This is sort of what I assume is that, like, you know, they kind of are. So I remember hearing that, like, the e-commerce platforms would have somebody that sort of has a point of contact with whoever's doing the Gartner report, or they kind of communicate, you know what I mean? And I don't know, it just seems like this funny game that they play to get a certain position in there, and it's not really truly objective. So I don't really.
It plays to a certain market which is quite high up, and I think for the typical SMB merchant, I think it's hurtful when a platform decides to purely serve that magical that quadrant, the Gartner quadrant, and skip the
it's
needs
another religion.
of the
We're talking about religions. It's another little mini religion.
Yeah, I mean, if that means that you're skipping such a large open source community and their needs because you need to gain that position in the quadrant, that's hurtful for a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
And then the Shopify layoff, I think that's a typical effect of. So I read that they said they made prognosis before or during Corona, COVID, and they projected the growth that they were seeing that would hold on for a longer time, and they now realize that growth wasn't as big, so they hired in advance to ride that wave, and they needed to cut expenses there because they hired too overeagerly. So I don't know if that's a sign of recession, but at least it's a sign that the e-commerce market is no longer growing as hard as when we're at peak COVID times.
Well, and I'm kind of just, I'm kind of like, things have kind of leveled out, whether you're talking about e-commerce, real estate, you know, like Austin real estate is kind of leveled out. But I'm still expecting things to take a dive at some point, and it doesn't even.
Me too. Yeah.
It doesn't even seem like. I mean, I guess Shopify firing 1,000 people is a dive, but then of course they did the Klaviyo investment for 100 million right after. So it's like what? It's like what is even happening here? But I don't know. Those are kind of two separate. I mean, I don't really know much about this, but those are kind of two separate things. I mean, I don't know. So
it's still strange times. I'm wondering how COVID evolves from here and what the winter will look like. And
winter is coming.
There's an ongoing war, which is so deeply saddening that this is happening today, and we're all affected by it, but nothing comparable by the misery that Ukrainians are going through right now. But it seems like we're not at the end of it yet, and economies are falling.
And it's like, you know, you at some point you kind of have to. It's like you kind of have to move on with life. Like you have to, not to be glib about it. I mean, even when you think about yourself dying, like you have to, on some level, realize that when you die, people are going to move on. Like, yeah, hopefully they'll cry for a little bit, and then people are going to have to just move on with their lives. Otherwise, they can't function.
Yeah, we were really a bit in a shock at the beginning of the year when the war started, and we kind of halted all our social media and everything. We started donating to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And we have regular contact with people from Ukraine, so we kind of know like how they see the international what's happening internationally. Yeah. And the way we see it currently is that Ukrainians are not helped by us not doing our regular business, our day-to-day business. Right. And in our case, in the Magento world, Ukraine plays a very important role in the Magento community, as their core development team came from there. And today, a lot of those core developers are working at agencies and companies in Ukraine. Yeah. So there's still a really big driving force to the Magento ecosystem. Yeah. And if we don't keep business going as usual, they lose work. And we saw at the beginning of the war that a lot of them got projects canceled, and we made an effort of getting those agencies some extra work. And with Huva, we have this supplier page where you can find an agency, and we put Ukraine to the top there. Whenever I get an email from a merchant asking for a developer, I always first suggest the agency from Ukraine. Yeah. So we're trying to help in any way that we can. But yeah, we try to validate, like, it feels so weird to be at a conference and having fun and partying while that is going on in Ukraine. But yeah, we're helping, in a way, we're helping Ukrainian people by keeping Magento prosperous, keeping it healthy and making sure that their jobs are secured and we have a healthy ecosystem. Yeah. So totally. That's the way we try to contribute to that and be respectful to what's happening there. Yeah.
It's a little counterintuitive sometimes when you think about it, but the way you laid it out, that makes perfect sense. Well, why don't we wrap it up? Any last things we want to touch on here?
Well, we did promise to talk a bit about the association.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it proper. That would be hilarious if every single episode, we kind of go, all right, well, let's not talk about it. Okay, well, and then we talk about it a little bit, and we just do that every single time for like 10 weeks in a row. All right, so yeah, last time we left off on it, you were saying that you had some. I was kind of saying, like, listen, this is probably a standard line item. I know it seems like a lot of money. It's probably just very standard, and it's kind of not a big deal. And then you were saying you kind of had some specific thoughts there.
Yeah. So the thing is, the Magento Association is a company, in a sense, that needs to be run, and there's people actually working in the organization that are coming in through Smith Buckland. So there was the financial statements were published from the association, and on Twitter people talked about the $900,000 that went to Smith Buckland over the course of the first 2-3 years, which seems like which is a very high amount. It's a lot of money, at least. But that number wasn't split out into details where that money went to. And I think the important thing there to realize is that Smith Bucklin handles a lot of the infrastructure and a lot of the publishing and marketing, and they set all the agendas for meetings and attend all of the meetings and write the summaries after the meetings. So there's a big chunk of money going to newsletters being sent out every month. Or big chunk. I mean, that's one of the costs that they have. They have content services for publishing articles 2 to 3 times a month.
So those newsletters that I see and completely ignore, those are not cheap, is what we're saying. Those emails.
Well, they cost money because they're being redacted. Someone is formatting those. That's being paid for the service that's being used to send it. They have a platform for the website that is actually a community tool where I think there's a lot of things that platform can do that's not being leveraged right now. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things that I just had one board meeting so far, and it was mostly the topic was mostly around the new board members, welcoming them and talking about the work that's being done on the open source task force and how that is going to move forward. So there was a little bit of talk about the financials and how that's moving forward. But I just got access to a bit more of the documentation of the association and to see how the organization is built up. And one of the things that we've talked about is making effort of the transparency of the association and what they do and how the organization is structured and everything.
Right.
So what I think a good first step is that there was a very lengthy blog post about the process of the election. And Andreas von Stutnich, he wrote that blog post. He was on the committee. But we've discussed that we should try and bring out news as much as possible and explain what's going on the inside of the association. And I think one of the things that they could do better, or we could do better, is explain how these costs are built up. And I want to have a good look at these services, like the one that they use for publishing the website, because it's costly and it takes long to have changes being made to the website. They actually need to email someone to ask to add an agenda item to the homepage.
A little enterprising. The whole situation is a little enterprising.
I think since they're not leveraging the membership features that platform offers, and they put that into Patreon, which I also think could be done maybe in a more efficient way. But that website could be a standard WordPress theme that you set up in an hour and just migrate the content, and you'd be off 1,000x cheaper than what's currently being
What
paid.
you're saying is you could have done in a weekend what they charged $900,000 for. That's what we're saying here.
Yeah, I mean it's
that's a little bit of a joke, like.
Yeah, but these things, I mean, at that scale, you have certain expectations when you set up an organization, and you think, well, we need this system. These are the requirements. We need to do memberships and payments and everything. So this is the best suited platform for that. And we're expecting 50,000 people to join this platform. And then 3 years later, there's maybe 500 people, and they're not using the platform for membership. So maybe we should evaluate if that's still the best platform and cut some costs there.
Right.
But yeah, it's all still quite new to me being on the inside of the association, but I'm planning to get a lot of questions answered, and see, as my understanding of the association grows, I would like to also publish that somewhere and make sure that it becomes more transparent.
Nice.
So that's one of my missions. I guess we can come
Fair
back
enough.
to that at a later point.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just generally more transparency. Some of these things are like I can understand why they're using tools that are a little more enterprisey. Things are not cheap. And maybe if we can get some of these things a little more transparent, we can go, okay, hey guys, instead of spending $5,000 for somebody to send out an email, let's pay Kalen $5 to do it for us. Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's an organization, and an organization needs to be organized, and someone needs to actually do the work. And since the board members are all volunteers, and we meet once a month for an hour, there's nothing you can do in that time. And we can go into committees and have meetings and make progress there, but that's not doing the administration and planning and running the organization itself. So, and all the content publishing and everything.
Yeah, I think it's one of those scenarios.
It would be a big restructure to do this differently, because who else would do it if Smith Buckland wasn't doing it? You would need to hire the people to do the jobs that are currently being done. And the issue currently is that no one knows what jobs are being done. So why does it cost money? Well, there's work that's being done. Well, what's the work? It's not transparent. We don't know.
Yeah,
so
totally.
it starts with transparency, and then we can better understand where time is being spent and where the money goes to.
Yeah. I think that's a good approach. I had something I was going to say, but then I forgot it. All right. Well, I think that was good. I think we did it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. If I can be brutally honest, I think it's a case where everybody has the best of intentions, but nothing's getting done. And not nothing in the literal sense, but for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but it's like things are not moving forward.
And I'm trying to get a grip on that and see how that could potentially be fixed. I don't know if it's partly lacking independence or lacking. Maybe it needs an actual leader that takes the lead there.
I'm trying really hard not to use a certain phrase that you don't like.
Yeah,
you know what I'm thinking. You know what I'm thinking.
Well, I can't be that person for multiple. I couldn't be that for MageOS, for our own organization that we set up, because I am leading Huva, and there's so much that needs to be done at the Huva end.
I think the key is ownership, right? Like if somebody had the ability to actually make things happen, the ability to go, okay, spending too much money on this thing, email, here's how we're going to do it. But I'm assuming that you've got a committee of people. They all have the best intentions. Nobody really has ownership. They all have their own businesses, their own things they're focused on, and I'm sure they all have the best intentions. But if you had some way for a person or a smaller group of people to go, all right, here's it needs to get done. Let's actually start getting things done efficiently. I don't know how that happens, and I could. Yeah. It's easy to criticize. It's hard to actually deal with an organization at that scale. So yeah, it's easy for me to criticize. To actually do it is what you're doing, which I think is cool. And
the difficult thing is, that Smith Buckland is doing the actual work, but they don't have that full understanding of the community and the product, because they're not coming from the community as someone that's touched the product for 10
years. They're like a hired hand, so to speak. They're just doing
I'm not
job.
saying that they're doing what they do, that they're doing that poorly, but I think what the MA needs to to make progress and be more successful would be someone that does understand the community and Magento.
Of course.
That
of course.
has the time and the funds. Ideally, he would be hired for X amount of hours a week to organize it, to take the lead there. And
somebody that gets the community, somebody that cares about it, can get things done, and then give them the keys. If all they can do is give their opinion, and I'm sure every single person on the association could do that if they had the keys, if they had the ability to make the decisions to do stuff. So there's a lot of people that could do it, but you kind of need somebody to just start doing stuff. But you need somebody that gets the community and can just do it, you know. I think you said that a little more eloquently than I did, but I'm working on only a few hours of sleep. So on that note, it's a lot of fun. I think we're going to wrap up. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Willem, a pleasure as always. And
likewise.
Sir, see you next week.
Thanks for listening.